Hi, today we're looking at using chalk pastels and a couple of different techniques that you can use with chalk pastels. I'm using these ones, okay, they're called soft pastels or chalk pastels. There's a lot of different brands out there, so you can try some, find ones that you like. This is what these ones look like in the box. I quite like these because they're already snapped. They're already quite small. Often you get with pastels, you get a long stick which you then are going to snap in half anyways. These are already snapped. You've got a wide range of colours. But if you do have longer ones, that's absolutely fine. If you have a smaller range of colours, that's absolutely fine too, because you can blend them and mix them together to create the effects that you want. Other useful things when you're using pastel, you'll notice here that I've actually got my paper on top of some tissue. Chalk pastels are very messy, they're very powdery, so it's quite useful to have something to catch the pastels. As I said, they're messy, so I've also got some tissues to hand as well. Okay. Today we're just focusing on different techniques. The main one is different ways of blending the colors together, and as we progress I will show you some useful tools. So it doesn't really matter what we're drawing today, it's really about just experimenting with the media. So I'm just going to start with some blue, and I'm just going to put the color on, but I'm not going to mix it together. So the great thing with chalk pastels is it picks up the texture of the paper very nicely. If you've got a smooth paper, then it will go up smooth, but even if you've got a little bit of texture on your paper, it will pick up that texture. I'll show you some here. This is some watercolor paper, and you can see that this looks much rougher because the surface is rougher, so it does pick up the texture of the paper very, very nicely. I'm going to stick with this for the moment. There's a couple of ways you can hold your chalk pastels. Mostly they are square, so you can use them on the side of the square like I was doing just now. You can also use it on a point if you want to actually draw a very fine line. Okay. Or if you want to cover a very large area, you can use the whole side of it, and you can just drag your pastel across the whole paper. So again, have an experiment, try with the different techniques depending on what you want to draw. If you want something precise and you want a very strong line, then the corner is going to be useful for you. Whereas if you're covering a wide area, the side might be good. Now, as it happens, I've got quite a wide range of colours here, but if I didn't, I'm going to put these to the side. If I want to make this darker, it's quite straightforward. It's a bit like using colour pencils. I can build it up in layers, so I can just keep going over and over, and you can see it quickly becomes darker. Okay, I can even really press down. This is all one colour. I can still get a really big range just with that one pastel. Again, play around with layering, play around with the different pressures. Okay, if I want to, I can of course switch to a darker one. Okay, by putting the two colours side by side and overlapping them a bit, I can actually get some very nice blending. Okay, I'll show you with another one going from lighter to darker. So I'm going to start off with some yellow, then I'm going to switch to this darker orange again. I'm placing it next to slightly overlapping, so I'm not using a lot of pressure here. Okay, and you can see the colours changing just by, even though they're different colours, I'm actually getting quite a nice smooth transition. You can get some very nice layered effects as well. So if I'm going to put a light colour down first. If you're layering, you want to put the light one first, otherwise it won't show up. And I'm going to get a nice dark red here and go over the top. The yellow will still show through a bit, You can get some very nice effects. Now at this stage I haven't actually blended anything at all. I've just been using the pastel by itself, but the really nice thing about pastels is that they blend very nicely and easily. You can get some gorgeous, gorgeous, smooth transition of colours. So if I do the same thing again, alright, so I'm going to start with the yellow, okay, then the orange, and this time I'm going to use my finger. Now my finger's pretty dirty already, so I'm just going to clean them off a bit. Okay, and then using my finger, I'm just going to blend them. So you're rubbing your finger backwards and forwards, and you get a beautiful, nice transition there. Again, I'm going to add the orange now, and darker. Again, I just clean my finger off, and backwards and forwards, very nice smooth transition. Now you can blend side to side, but you don't have to. I could equally, just do a different one here, blend. Okay, you can blend in the direction that you drew, or you can blend across. Alright, always watch what is on your fingers. Okay, so I'll give you an example here. If I use a light colour now and I want to blend it, that green, you see, has made it really dirty. So do always check your fingers, and you can always just give them a dust off. Now if you're finding you're getting a lot of powder, try and avoid blowing it everywhere, but rather walk over to the bin, and you can just gently with your finger tap the back, or even just knock it onto your paper that way, and that will just clear off some of the loose powder. Now as well as using your finger, there's a couple of other things you can do. You could also use tissue to blend, okay, to blend the colours together. So if I've got some, I'll still keep, you know what, I'm just going to keep with the yellow and the orange for that consistency. Here's my darker yellow. If you really can't bear the mess, you can get a bit of tissue, okay, and blend it also. Now you'll see some of the colour is coming off onto the tissue. Comes up on your fingers, it probably comes up a little bit more on the tissue. The nice thing with tissue is you can, if you need to, put it into a bit of a point. So you can also blend it, if you want to blend a very small area, that can work quite nicely. All right. Another thing that is good for blending small areas is one of these, cotton bud. Again, the yellow, and then the orange, okay, and then maybe the darker orange as well. Now, when you blend with a Q-tip, let's see if you can notice this. So I'm sort of smudging it. Okay. Okay. Now I'm blending, but quite a lot of the colour is actually coming off onto the Q-tip. It is a very small area. So this is not going to be useful for a big area. Much better to use your fingers for this. It also, I don't know if you can see, it's actually coming up quite a lot lighter, because it does raise, it does lift some of the colour. So if I knock off this extra powder here, okay, it is a little bit lighter, and you can actually see much more of the paper underneath. It honestly depends on what effect you actually want to get. So you cannot blend it at all, and you'll see some very nice texture. You can blend it with your fingers, you can blend it with a tissue paper, or you can blend it with a cotton bud, Q-tip. You can choose. Always do the light colours first and then build it up. Okay, so you can add the layers. So even with this layer here, this layer that I did earlier, I can now add. Okay, you can do strokes that way. Okay, you can even do it round in circles. Okay, even on the edge like this. this is nice for kind of a nice sort of fluffy effect. Okay, and then if I'm quite liking that. Okay, but what if I, okay, so picking up the texture, but I can also, wiping my fingers, smudge it as well. Now you can still see some of the lines. I can also go over it if I want. Okay, with the strong lines, you can also, and this is where a cotton bud can come in handy, you can be very precise with your blending. So you want a line, but you don't want the texture. Okay, now I'm going to go over that. I'm using the point here. Okay, and again. Okay, so have a go with these different techniques, blending, not blending, using the different sides, different points of the chalk pastels themselves to see what effects you can get.